it's a great opportunity to bring in our special guest for today, Mandy Bell, who is the Cleveland Guardians beat writer for the Major League Baseball, does a tremendous job. Mandy, I'm happy to have you on the show for a number of reasons. Welcome to PHLY Phillies podcast. That first reason, 25-year-old Emmanuel Clase. Now, we've heard a lot of trade rumors circulating that Emmanuel Clase might be wheeled and dealed to another team, and one trade rumor was involving the Phillies, Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, and Johan Rojas, which we call him Yoro, by the way, which if this trade happens, you want to help that nickname continue in Cleveland, for Emmanuel Clase. Mandy, how can we land Emmanuel Clase in Philly? What will it take?
A lot. It'll take a lot. The Guardians never have anybody off the table, ever. I mean, they listen to trade offers on any of their players, and it doesn't mean that they're willing to part with them right away for the easiest deal that they can find. I mean, Emmanuel Clase is someone who's going to take the farm to get rid of, and I just don't see them doing it right now unless it's literally clearing house of that any type of pipeline that they have, and they need major league ready hitters. There's a lot of things that they would need, but you would need to have a huge haul in return for Clase. So I wouldn't get my hopes up too much for him. For other teams hoping that they will be able to land him before the 2024 season, but I mean, nothing is ever off the table with Cleveland.
So, Mandy, first, before we get to the baseball stuff, we got to know our producer's a Penn State guy. We had Thesha on yesterday, who's a Penn State girl. What are your thoughts on James Franklin?
Oh, boy.
Oh, man, I wasn't expecting this. All right. Well, let's say
let's put it on the table.
Let's just say that the change wouldn't be a horrible thing. I mean, let's mix things up. I'm tired of the same expectation every year of 2 losses, so I'd be okay with a little bit of something different.
Yeah, the man can certainly recruit. But before we had you on, we were talking about baseball prospectuses, PECOTA, predictions for this year. It has Cleveland at 83.6 wins. So what is, we've talked about him during the offseason here. What is the general direction of this team? Because Shane Bieber's been mentioned in trade rumors. Emmanuel Clase, dating back to last year, has been rumored. I know you said they listened to everything, but is there an expectation of actually winning out there? I mean, you have some really nice pieces on that team, but like you said, it seems like they're in on a lot of rumors and listening to everything.
They're in a weird stage right now where, I mean, every single year they try to compete without having to reach the ever-dreaded rebuild. And they've been able to toe that line for a couple of years now. I mean, they've been the youngest team in baseball for the last 2 years. And in 2022, it worked. They had a lot of fun. The youth played in their favor, and they were able to make it into the postseason, and not just the first round, but they made it to the second round. So it worked for them then, but only so long can you run on that type of luck. And I think a lot of luck fell in their favor. And last year they realized what it was whenever luck went against them. And so when the ball wasn't falling in their way, it was definitely a clunkier year. And so they're sort of stuck in that limbo territory of they're listening on offers, and they could get rid of someone like Shane Bieber, but they're not sure if he has the same trade value that he's had in the past. He had that injury in the second half of last season, and then obviously his numbers aren't quite the same, his metrics aren't quite the same, his velocity has dipped, and so it's just with only 1 year of control remaining, it's hard to know if you're getting everything that you think you could get for with a trade of him. So now they have to play the game of, do they wait till the trade deadline, hope he has a strong first half, and then try to capitalize on sending him off as a rental for a competitor? I don't know. It's hard to understand the mindset going into this year, especially with a new manager. He's trying to figure everything out. So I think it has a chance of being a learning experience, some growing pains a little bit as they're trying to make this transition of not fully rebuilding once again, and trying to hang on to these pieces that they have. They got Scott Barlow to help in the back end of the bullpen. Like, they have some pieces, but then they also have a lot of question marks and a lot of young players who are going to have to really thrive in the majors, which is hard to do at the beginning of your career, for them to have success.
Interesting. And as you talk about Shane Bieber, I know he was connected to the Dodgers. They were reportedly at one point looking to make a trade happen for Bieber. You can talk about Emmanuel Clase and how there's a lot that would have to be involved in that trade to make it actually happen. So what do you anticipate the Cleveland Guardians are going to do? What do you see as the priority maybe for that next move or direction that they're headed?
I really don't know. At this point, like at the beginning of the offseason, if you would have asked me this then, I would have said Shane Bieber 100% will be traded. Then they ended up DFAing Cal Quantrill and then trading him to Colorado. And without him in the rotation, suddenly that depth is really, really thin. They don't really have the pipeline that they've had in the past, waiting in the minors to come up if there would be an injury or anything else. So right now they're relying on these 5 guys that they have. They did bring in Carlos Carrasco again on a minor league deal that should help give a little bit of depth. And they have some guys who could be able to provide that. But for a long-term answer, if they would run into injuries like they did last year, it will be really stretched thin if they get rid of Shane Bieber. So I just don't know if they have the room to do that right now. And it's just, this is so uncharacteristic for them. They rarely let guys like starting pitchers of this caliber walk into free agency. So I'm sure they'll try to, if they don't do anything now, capitalize on it at the trade deadline if they can. But right now, I just wouldn't be surprised if they stand pat and they try to figure out what they can do with the guys that they have in their system right now at spring training to fill out this opening day roster.
So, Mandy, a lot of the things we've paid attention to here in the offseason are the top 10 rankings of MLB Network. What does Jose Ramirez have to do to be recognized finally as the best third baseman in baseball? Like, who did this guy offend?
I don't know. I think that that's something that Guardians fans would love to have the answer to. They love to post about that. I mean, I think he's really done a lot to make sure that he's in that conversation, because the biggest thing for him in the past had been defense, and that's what has always been holding him back. But over the last few years, he's talked about how much he's worked on his defense to make sure that he is that all-around best third baseman. And so I do think the work that he's put in there has allowed him to jump up in those rankings a little bit more, and be in this conversation of, okay, maybe he should be number one. And I know a lot of Cleveland fans are positive he should be number one. But I mean, it's hard to really say anything negative about him. He's in the MVP conversation every single year. You look on his baseball reference page and he's getting votes. It seems like every year for the last 6-7 years. It's maybe 1 year he missed, but he's always in the conversation. His numbers are so consistent, and it's just so nice for the Guardians, who have an offense right now that is really unpredictable, and you're not really sure where you're going to get your production from. But it's nice to have that one consistent guy that every year you know the numbers he's going to put up and you know what he's able to provide.
Yeah, one thing that's consistent from what you've shared is, we definitely, between the Phillies and the Guardians, have players that we've talked about that should be higher on rankings and maybe not getting the credit that they deserve, but also both teams seeming to be in just kind of a wait and see period of, let's just roll with the roster we've got and go from there. Now, curious to know your thoughts from the outside looking in on the Phillies and the NL East, and just kind of the thoughts on how this team is shaping out, but also how the NL East is shaping out. Because as we were talking about prior, the Braves expected to win again around 100 wins this year. The Phillies projected to win around 85. But as a team specifically, what are your thoughts on the squad for the Phillies as well as the NL East?
Now, I'm used to the AL Central, and there's no one that's going to be projected to have 100 wins in this division. So that's a division that would be a different type of monster to have to take on. So I don't think having to see any projections for the Braves would be fun as any type of competitor. That's just brutal to always have to be facing them. But I think for the Phillies, it's just something that, from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like there's got to be a chip on the shoulder to just keep getting so close over the last few years. And it's just so close and then just not there. I know this last postseason was really, really difficult. That environment is so fun as an outside fan to sit there and watch how difficult it must be for opponents to come in there. I think it's great for baseball whenever Philadelphia is in that type of contention. And so I think that it's a team that, even though they've had success, it seems like over the last few years, there's still sort of like an underdog type of mentality of maybe they're not quite there yet. And I don't know why that's continually the thought, because it just seems like they keep proving people wrong. And so because of that, I wouldn't be surprised to just watch them be this underdog type of contender yet again, and watch them come into the season and be like, okay, we still have this chip on our shoulder, and for some reason people keep doubting us, so we're going to prove them wrong. But I think it's once again just shaping up to be a really fun type of competitive division because you have to have it like that. You have to come in ready to win when you have a team like the Braves just sitting there being as lethal as any major league team could be.
Yeah, Mandy does a great job for those in the chat. Mandy Bell, you can follow her on Twitter at Mandy Bell02, I believe.
Yeah.
She covers the Guardians for MLB.com. We have our own Todd Zalecki in town, MLB.com. Phillies writer. I've been asking a lot of the reporters we've had on this question because I think heels are good for sports. Now, the Yankees have returned to like kind of Death Star early 2000s and money is no object type of team. And of course, the Dodgers spent over $1 billion this offseason, which is wild to say out loud. Do you think these super teams are good for baseball? Because I do. I'm curious what you think.
I think that there's an argument for both sides. I think it's great because it gets fans really, really excited whenever there's like nothing is off the table type of mindset. I think that's fun because you can sit there and you can say, oh my gosh, what are they going to do next? Like they don't have to be done right now. And how can they continue to keep going out and figuring out how to become a powerhouse? There's a way that this is really, really fun. You can see some of baseball's biggest stars playing together, and to think of the Dodgers with, you have Mookie Betts, you have Ohtani, you have so many guys, like that's really, really fun. And you think about with this new type of schedule that they have now, where the Dodgers will be playing all over the country and seeing more fan bases than what they had in the past, that's going to draw a crowd because you're having superstars coming into town that maybe you hadn't seen before, and they're all in one place. So I do think in those types of regards, it is great for baseball because you can see these really excellent stars coming together in one place. And so I think that'll be fun to see Aaron Judge, Juan Soto. I think it's great for those types of things. Now, on the other aspect, I will have Guardians fans sitting here telling me this is the worst thing ever, and we can't have anyone in Cleveland because they can't afford anybody. So I understand both sides of it because it is difficult for small market teams. It can be perceived as not an equal playing field because they just can't go out and spend money. The Guardians can't spend Shohei Ohtani money. The front office made jokes with us all the time, like, "Are you guys going to ask us if we're in on Ohtani yet, or what's going on?" Like, it's just no. It's the small markets can't quite compete in that type of realm. So I can understand the mindset of a small market fan where you're like, well, no, this isn't fun because my team can never ever have that type of player on it. And it takes someone like Jose Ramirez to take a team-friendly extension to be able to stay in Cleveland. So I can see both sides of it for sure.
So on that note, does the Kansas City signing of Bobby Witt Jr. the other day kind of give a little bit more hope to these small market teams, or do you think that's just kind of a one-off because he's so special and young?
I don't know if it's hope or I don't know if it's bitterness. It could be either because fans are now like, okay, if the Royals can do it, why haven't we done this? And so it's a good point. It's a question that everyone should have because if the Royals can pull off a number like that, I mean, it's really, really hard to imagine other teams coming up with excuses as to why they can't. And so yes, I think it could be helpful to say, look, a small market team is doing something like this. And I think that other small market teams, there is potential for them to do similar types of things. But I think there's also a side of it where fans are maybe a little bitter about it. Like, okay, so now we're proving that it can be done and it hasn't been. Why?
So, Mandy, earlier you were talking about Shane Bieber probably returning at least to start the year, and I look at that rotation with him and McKenzie, a candidate to return, and Bibby, and my question to you is, because I still can't wrap my head around this, 7 months later now, why did the Guardians move Aaron Sali at the deadline last year?
For Manzardo, Kyle Manzardo was the biggest type of return that they could have as long as he pans out the way that they're hoping. So this offense is their biggest problem. They just don't have guys who produce. They don't have power hitters. They've been at the bottom of the leaderboard and almost in slugging and homers and RBIs and all these categories the last few years. And they need to figure out an answer. And Manzardo has the possibility to be that because he is someone who is like his hit ability is above his power ability, but now his power ability is growing as well. And so when you combine those two, that's a type of hitter that the Guardians just have not seen in a while. And so to plug that into the middle of the order at some point, whether he makes the opening day roster or not, I think that could be really, really big for them. And Aaron Sali wasn't this big difference maker. He had a really hot July, and that's why his trade value was through the roof. That's why they were able to get Kyle Manzardo for him at that time. But when they valued it, they looked at it as, okay, we have all of these great starting pitchers, and Aaron Sali isn't this tremendous difference maker. You look through this right now, and honestly, he might be the sixth guy if you're looking through this rotation right now, which they need a sixth guy right now. But still, if you're looking for that in the long run and you can capitalize that for a bat that they really think could pan out for them, it's a trade that probably needed to be made. It was just difficult at that time because Guardians fans were still hanging on to the hope that they could make a run in the division because the Twins weren't running away with it just yet.
Yeah, and Mandy, we love the work that you do. You do a tremendous job covering the Guardians. That's eminent in everything that you're sharing, all the insight. But before we let you go, couldn't be remiss without talking to you, especially on this National Girls and Women in Sports Day, about a tremendous fellow female colleague, your best friend, Sarah Langs, who you did a beautiful piece around her battle. She has ALS. You're helping to promote hashtag Sarah Strong. Want to just give our viewers and listeners a chance to hear about Sarah, the work that you guys have been doing to raise awareness, and how they can support as well.
Baseball is the best.
Oh, man. Yes, exactly. The support that she's had since she went public with her diagnosis has just been overwhelming. And if it's overwhelming for me, I can only imagine what it is for her. It shows how wonderful this community can be. It shows how wonderful social media can be, because we forget that at times because it can be such a dark place. But it's been just so tremendous for her in her efforts. I think it's been, goodness, what was it, October 2022 that she went public with it. So it's been a little bit over a year now that she's been out there. But as soon as she went public with it, I started a GoFundMe at that time, and we were able to raise $105,000 through that GoFundMe for her, for ALS research. Her favorite charity that she works with is Project ALS. And so she was able to make a really sizable donation to them, which was wonderful. And so since then, she's just been doing different things to make sure that people are connected in the community to the ALS world, and trying to find as much funding as we can, because just, it's crazy how underfunded it is. It's crazy how it's been prominent for so long. I mean, it's named after Lou Gehrig. You think about how long this has been going on, and there's just been very little progression in finding a cure for this. And so it's just something that is very important to her, and obviously very important to me. It's not fun to have to watch your best friend go through something so miserable as this is. And so trying to find any way to get this out there, be a little bit more public than what it is the only thing that we care about.
Mandy, we have some very charitable listeners and followers of the show. If somebody did want to make a donation, what is the best way to go about it? Is it to buy, one of these pitching ninja shirts? Baseball is the best. Is it to make a donation right to the ALS Foundation, to Sarah's Foundation? Like, what's the best way for people to help out here?
All three of those are wonderful ways to go about it. I think if you want something in return, the t-shirt is awesome, and it's actually the most comfortable t-shirt I own. And I've heard a lot of people say that. So the baseball is the best shirt that has "and ALS" down the middle. When Pitching Ninja and RotoWare came to me before Sarah found out about it with that design, I was blown away. I just thought it was the coolest design ever. And it's so cool because I've gone to Disney World with my husband and some friends. I've gone to different places, and I randomly see people wearing those shirts. And it's just, that's my favorite thing. And she gets so excited when she sees those as well. So that one's amazing. There's I think it's a Lang star is the actual phrase for the star that Carl Ravitch started. And there's stars that are being sold all over the country that are little decorative stars. I mean, you plug them in and they light up, and his goal is to one day be able to fly over the country and seeing everything lit up below, and seeing all the stars outside of people's houses for Sarah, because she is just such a light in this world that we don't really see as often as we should. So there's those stars that you can order, and all the proceeds from that go to ALS research as well. You can just go straight to Project ALS. That's who Sarah works so closely with. And I think she still has the link in her bio on X. I almost said Twitter, still practicing that, on X.
to me.
Fist bumps for ALS is what she still is raising money for. So I think you can go there as well.